It's time for Political Buzz, the television forum to discuss politics and issues of interest for all of Western New York. Now, from the WBBZ television studio at the Eastern Hills Mall, this is Political Buzz.
Hey everybody, John DeShula with you for another edition of Political Buzz here on WBBZ-TV, your hometown television station. It's great to be with you for the next half hour. We have some very interesting guests coming up, some great friends, people who are so critical to the branding of Western New York, the people who are out there in the world and they find out what people think of Buffalo and what Buffalo thinks of the rest of the world. Drew Cerza, the undisputed Wing King, and Brian Whitman, Hamburg native, who is the Vice President of Global Events for Disney Parks and Resorts. Now that's coming up in just a little bit. But speaking of a brand, how about the brand of Donald Trump, the billionaire investor, the billionaire mogul, the host of The Apprentice, so many things. He's the guy that might be running for governor in the state of New York. It's being kicked around as a possible political move that he may make. And would you believe that Western New Yorkers are involved in this process? I had an opportunity to talk to David DiPietro. He's an assemblyman in the New York State Assembly for the Republican Party, and he told me when I asked him whether or not Donald Trump was serious about this pursuit, he says yes.
Yes. Here's why. And he said this in front of 65 people. He said it in front of 12. He said it numerously last night at dinner. If the Republican Party, he's made it very simple, if the Republican Party can coalesce around him, he doesn't want a primary, he doesn't want infighting, he wants everyone together, he will run. He says we can't waste time fighting ourselves. We need to be on attack with Mr. Cuomo from day one, which is very shortly. He said that repeatedly, over and over. I'm the guy. I can win. I'm ready to run. But I need you guys behind me. I can't have the Republican Party divided like it has been so many times. That's a pretty simple request for a state that hasn't won a statewide election in 12 years. Mr. Cox, as the Republican chairman, has been number one at keeping Donald Trump from getting this nomination.
David DiPietro there. We're going to hear more from him in just a little bit. The man he was talking about, Ed Cox, is the chairman of the Republican Party across New York State. His candidate is a Westchester County Republican who admittedly has very little name recognition, but that's the man that he feels might be the best candidate. Now, obviously, the Republicans are looking at Donald Trump as a brand. He's somebody that has the money to go up against somebody like Andrew Cuomo, a very popular incumbent. And he certainly has the love and affection of people downstate in New York City with all the work and the business that he's done there. Now, he's going to be coming upstate in just a little bit. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But I asked David when I had him on the phone the other day, here's a man who has done so much and is used to getting his way. What would it be like for him to go to Albany and face all of that bureaucracy?
Mr. Trump has done multinational deals in this state, deals in this country, deals around the world. He's had to deal with Republicans, Democrats. He's had to deal with every government entity you can imagine. Mr. Trump is overly qualified to deal with any minutia red tape that Albany might present. He's been dealing with politicians for 40 years plus on both sides of the aisle, and he's become a multi-billionaire being able to work with both sides of the aisle.
Now, what I found fascinating is David DiPietro is from East Aurora. Michael Caputo, who's another Republican pundit and was involved in the campaign with Carl Palladino, is also involved in this movement with Donald Trump. I found it very fascinating that here are these guys from Western New York who are now on the inner circle with Donald Trump. So I asked David, what is Trump really like?
I have a fantastic relationship with him. We hit it off when we met. I've met him a few times now. We had dinner last night, and we get along great. He asks very pointed questions. We talk. He's a very open person. You can talk to him about anything. He's just he connects with people. He doesn't have that air about him. He sits down and he just starts open the conversation, and it's a great dialogue. Unlike our governor, who sucks all the air out of the room, who is the smartest man in any room he goes into, and he lets you know it. Mr. Trump listens to everybody. He's very intelligent. I think he's going to be a good for us. I get along with him great. We've all been meeting with him. I think he's respected us. He's taken. He didn't have to listen to us, but he did. He's invited us back again and again. We've continued the ball rolling forward. And I think he appreciates that. I think You know, if you would have told me a year ago or 6 months ago that I'd be having dinner with Donald Trump, I would have just laughed right at you. But now we are where we are, and the next few weeks are going to be crucial.
And in the next few weeks, Donald Trump is going to be in Western New York for a big fundraising dinner at Salvatore's Italian Gardens on Friday, January 31st. Now, Carl Palladino, a respected Republican and former candidate for governor of the state of New York, he said, and he's mentioned it on this very show, on this very panel, that if the Republicans don't pick the right candidate, he'll run for governor as a conservative. Now, I know Carl and Donald had Trump earlier this week on Monday night. When Carl comes back on Political Buzz, we'll hear more about what that meeting was like, and we'll be following this closely. Steve Pidgeon, as you know, regular contributor to this show, doesn't think Donald would run because he doesn't want to lose. Of course, Steve, a Democratic strategist and a supporter of Andrew Cuomo. So we'll see how this all plays out on Political Buzz in the weeks and months to come. But next, the branding of Western New York. What is Buffalo really like in the eyes of the rest of the country? That and more when we come back right after this. Hey, everybody, take a look at this video of Western New York, Buffalo, the community we know and love, the Queen City, Niagara Falls. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, the land that we live in with great architecture, great history. But how is Buffalo branded to the rest of the country? What do other people think of Western New York? We thought we'd invite two extremely bright and incredibly good friends here with us. And first time on the show is Brian Whitman, Vice President of Global Special Events for Disney Parks and Resorts, longtime key player at Walt Disney.
Thanks, John.
And from Hamburg, New York originally. And next to you, your good friend, our good friend, Drew Cerza, marketing maven and the undisputed Wing King.
Yes.
You know, and the thought that Bob Kaczynski had in putting the show together when we knew you were in town, Brian, because we know you travel a lot, is using like that video that we just saw, the wonderful pictures. You know, John Padgett has produced some great film that the Visitors Bureau put together a couple of years ago, the Buffalo for Real campaign. I mean, Brian, you're out in Walt Disney World. You're in Anaheim. You're in Orlando. You travel the country. What do people think of Buffalo when they say you're from Buffalo? What's their instant reaction?
The snow and cold. This ever since the blizzard of '77, it's been snow and cold, and I think it's unfortunately with the weather we've been having lately. It's been kind of the same thing.
Tough to dispute that,
and it is. So you know, I think you can't argue with that. It is a true thing. So how do you just let it roll off your shoulders and say, yeah, it is snowy and cold, but what you don't know, or do you know other things about Buffalo, and I think I try to promote it wherever I go, anywhere in the United States or the world, which I travel quite a bit. I'm very proud to be from Western New York. I love Western New York, and I think people just have to once they get here and try Western New York, they love it.
They do.
Everyone that's ever come here for anything that I've done or I've talked to, when they leave here, they leave loving Western New York. They really do.
And speaking of the cold, Drew, you and I worked together on Winterfest. You put it together a couple of years ago, and there's a Flurious event now that the Olmsted Parks is putting up. So maybe we need to celebrate the weather a little bit more, not hide from it, just embrace it.
It's funny. I was on the phone with somebody from New York today, and I said, "Hey, you're from New York, right? You get a lot of snow there. It's pretty cold, isn't it?" It's kind of flip-flopped. I don't get as many people anymore saying from Buffalo, "Oh, it's cold."
Well, because I think the rest of the world is getting it.
It's almost like it's transitioning the last couple of years. The snow kind of moved around, but we don't run from it. No, I think we have some great winter activities. We ski. We enjoy the snow. I mean, I'll tell you, one of our funnest moments in the last month was when it was supposed to be cold out the next day, and we sat around as a family waiting to see if school was closed.
Right.
And we're around the fire, and we're eating chicken wings and just hanging out, and it just... You're inside and you're around family. I think you make the best of it, and it creates great moments, and you appreciate the other weather as well, too.
Well, and you see the other weather across the country, which is heinous. I mean, how folks deal with earthquakes and tornadoes is just terrible. You talked about chicken wings, and you're most known now for the Wing event, the Wing Fest event. When you travel the country, you've done The View, and you've been on with Regis, my pal Regis. What do they say to you about Buffalo?
Regis is like, "How's Buffalo? I love Buffalo." Regis loves Buffalo. He really does. I mean, he loves Buffalo. People are, they're at times they're sympathetic. I'm like, it's okay, don't be sympathetic to me. It's a great place. But I agree with Brian. It's kind of like going to the supermarket. You sample like a good piece of cheese or food, you're going to buy that product. So the key is getting them to Buffalo, sampling our city, And you don't hear many people leaving with a bad feeling about Buffalo. I agree with Brian. The key is getting them here.
Yeah,
and I think the Visit Buffalo Niagara, the Tourism Bureau in Buffalo, does a great job of doing that.
Well, in the video that we just showed, they've been pretty aggressive in marketing that. Dottie Gallagher, who's now moved on to the partnership, and there's a new individual now that I'm sure we'll be able to meet soon who's taking that up. How difficult is it, Brian, do you think, to brand Buffalo, and how important is it to brand Buffalo?
Well, I think it's very important. I think if, shame on us for not doing it. And I think I agree with Drew wholeheartedly. I think in the last several years, the team here has done a great job of wrapping their arms around the whole architectural part of Buffalo and the historical part of it. And that's great, but that's only one piece of the story. I think if you really want to open your world up, you've got to go to much broader branding and much broader stories and really have things here that are beyond that, because that's a limited market. And I think for that market that's interested in architecture and interested in history, they should definitely come to Western New York. But if you're not interested in that, then the question becomes, why would I come here? And I think that's where, whether it's the association with Niagara Falls, which I'm a big fan and proponent of.
Do you think we connect the two
I don't think
enough?
we do it all. And it's one of the one of the largest great things in the world is Niagara Falls, and people want to come from all over the world to go see that. And I think if there's a way to connect that, to say that we're part of that experience, it would be great. I don't know if we do that enough.
And we talked earlier in the show, before the show, about some of the politics going on, and you saw the first segment on Donald Trump. I guess, Drew, because you live here and make your business here, and Brian, you're here a lot, but Drew, much more integrated into the business community. How important is it that business thrive? If we don't have a thriving business community, we can't brand something that's just a facade, and we can't attract businesses here if they don't get tax breaks.
No, that's a great point, and I really like what I saw yesterday with Chuck Schumer coming to town, and he was promoting the new legislation on giving some benefits, some business benefits to the local breweries, like the Pearl Street Brewery, and there's like 4 or 5 different breweries that are opening up to help that industry. Yeah. And I think it's taking industries and maybe segmenting industries, like shopping on Elmwood, like different segments of our area. And the biggest disappointment to me is also Niagara Falls, and it's nobody's fault. It's the disconnect.
Yeah.
There's so many different agendas, they just can't bring it together, and I think that's what we really need. But if you go down to the waterfront, it's crazy what's going on down there, all the construction. When that stuff is done, everything's done, it's going to be great. I'm excited about the new rinks to bring youth hockey and increase our tourism with amateur sports. But I'll tell you what, we're building it. We got to make sure they come, and that's where the Tourism Bureau needs more money than they're getting now in order to market our assets. That's one of our challenges. We don't have enough money to market our assets.
I've often felt there's been discussion about a new convention center, and when Joel Giambra was county executive, I had mentioned him. He had done a news interview with us, and it was when the casino was being discussed. And I've often felt that the convention center as it stands should have been the casino. It was connected to the Statler. It could have been, and connected to the Hyatt. Yeah. And a new convention center on the waterfront, like you've seen in like New Orleans, for example, very similar sized city to Buffalo, but it was expandable. Yeah. And they have huge conventions down there because it's on the waterfront and then so much developed around it. It just was my thought. I mean, do people connect, Drew, in this community to talk like that?
Well, the convention center is a tough thing because it's so expensive. You can build a big convention center, but you still need the infrastructure and the assets around for meeting planners and conventions to want to come to town. Yeah. The city needs to connect the right way. I was down in Orlando over the holidays, and we had a soccer tournament down there for my daughter, and I can't believe, like, we stayed right next to the convention center, one of the hotels, and what's that road with like 9 million restaurants?
International Drive.
International Drive. Yeah. It's scary. It's unbelievable, but it's so well placed. That convention center is so well placed. Yeah. It's right around a couple outlet malls.
So thought out.
It's not just where you put the convention center. There's got to be stuff around it too.
Yeah, I think it's New Orleans is a great example. I mean, you don't go to New Orleans for the convention center. You go to New Orleans for the infrastructure of the city, and be honest, it's the bars, it's the entertainment, it's the excitement of being in New Orleans. And by the way, there's a great convention center. They're very smart to do that. I think that's where we need to make sure there's other things to do in Buffalo that you'll want to bring these conventions to town, and we need the hotels for it, and we need other things to do. But I think we're getting there. I really think
I do
City
feel
of
a sense,
Buffalo,
there's an energy.
for the first time in years, is making some great progress. And I'm in and out often, so I don't see every day what's happening. But boy, when you go downtown and see things, they're looking better, and there's cranes up for the first time in years, and there's great stories and great progress. It feels like we're finally starting to get some momentum, which is only great for the future.
Drew talked about Orlando. You were in Orlando a lot. Walt Disney World is in Orlando. How did you, from Hamburg, New York, Brian Whitman, get from Hamburg to Hollywood with the Now series?
Plane trip.
In my Buick.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, it's actually, I started my career here at the Erie County Fair, right here in Hamburg, and that was my launching pad. I was growing up thinking, God, we've got this great thing right in my backyard. I've got to go be a part of that, and it was my experience at the fair, and then on to Darien Lake here locally, where I worked with Paul Snyder and his team for a while, and then from there on to a couple other stops, and ultimately to Disney. And I spent a couple of years in Florida, and then out to California for about 20 years, and it's been great. But I attribute all mine to the learnings that I had here at the Erie County Fair.
Well, and Disney itself is such a brand. I mean, there's some video we have of the parks, that's out there that, it's just amazing the control that you have with that brand. It is a family brand, from the parks that you go to the motion pictures that you see, to the the ABC television network with most of their offerings. It is a very key. How do you brand Walt Disney?
You know what? There's a term called synergy, which I think is starting to be a little bit overused in corporate America. But at Disney, we've really learned how to master synergy. And that's not to my credit, to a lot of people's credit, to where everybody has to give and take a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's the whole of the corporation that does really, really well. So the parks may do something that they've got to pay for or help support the film group for that costs the park something. Maybe the parks don't get that much out of it, but the film group does, and then the company does. So we're very focused on a vision, and if we're going to launch a film like we did with Frozen recently, which has been a huge hit, the parks, the stores, the online, every part of our company gets behind Frozen, and that's been a huge success. So if that does well, the whole company does well. Yeah. And we get very focused. A lot of companies don't want to do that. They don't want to support each other. They want to just take care of their own little part of it, not the bigger whole. Right. So Disney does that pretty well.
Just jumping on that. You know what else he's got down at Disney, which I think we need to get in Buffalo? You've got a culture. There's a culture there that people are proud of being part of Disney, working there. They love it. You never hear people say, I don't like my job, or I don't like it here. It's all positive. And I think in Buffalo, we need to get that. Yeah. We beat ourselves up pretty bad internally. Yeah. And if we can develop that Disney culture like we like it here, it's pretty cool. Yeah. And I think that's coming, because I agree. I think there's so many good things happening here. I think it's coming, but we need to be more positive, really appreciate what we have, and develop more of that Disney culture internally.
Well, one of the things that we're so positive about are the events like Wingfest and the Erie County Fair that Brian talked about. We'll talk more about what's coming up for those big events these two gentlemen are involved in when Political Buzz continues right after this. Hey, there it is, the Erie County Fair. It's coming up this summer. The website for more information, ecfair.org. Brian's going to tell us a little bit more about the big events coming up. And, of course, Wingfest. We're all there this September, and BuffaloWing.com is Drew's website, and you can find out all about the event that's coming up. Now, gentlemen, these events are a little ways away, but the planning is ongoing right now. We'll start with the fair, Brian. We left the last segment you talking about the fair being the reason that you were able to move forward in your career, but the 175th this year, it's big. It is a
big anniversary, and I think it's one of those great things right in our backyard. Is this fair? It's one of the largest fairs of all state and county fairs in the United States. And I mean, this year they did well over 1 million people went through the gates of the fair. And so this year's 175th anniversary. It's a milestone anniversary. There's not many fairs out there that can claim that. And I've been working with the fair since I started there. All my friends over there asked me to come back and work with them. And and help them think about things we can do. So there's a whole lot of planning right now underway that'll be announced here shortly of all the great things that are coming up this year that will make this fair. You know, if the other 174 were kind of on a rehearsal, this is the fair that you want to make sure everyone comes to and goes to, with things that are really going to set a new tone for the fair, and it's a great product.
Well, you know, we took WBBZ there for the first time this past fair. We had our football toss there and worked with Luann Delaney and you know Marty Bisniaz and Holly and everybody, and they're all excited about the Walenda Walk coming up. So we don't know how far and how high he's going to walk, but we know he's coming. So that's a big attraction.
There's a whole lot of things that are happening. There's a lot of special promotional days that are occurring, and we're doing, you know, the food's known for, the fair's known for its food. I mean, it's such a famous thing, and we always talk about what more can we do with the food, so there's some great food promotions that are coming up. A great promotion with the Western New York Food Bank. That's been a huge success nationally last year, so that's coming up, and we'll be announcing a lot more coming up here in the near future, but it's going to be one like any other fair we've ever had before.
And Drew, your Wingfest, you know, legendary, you know, picking up the Bill Murray movie, and there you sat and decided, let's do this, because there really wasn't a Wingfest.
I knocked it off, John. Let's just tell him.
Yeah, well, let's all right. I'm being kind. You know, it was a creative idea that you had.
He stole it.
I stole.
Yeah, but you talk about food. Food is the essence of that festival, and you know, it's so funny. We're talking about cold weather, but hot wings are what we're known for. That's sort of our brand. But what's happening with Wingfest this year? And you're national.
Yeah, you know, we've been very fortunate. When we started the Wingfest back in 2002, it was when the Food Network started just to come online with covered events and covering chicken wings. We were the ones that really started having them cover chicken wings. And also the internet really was taken off as far as people using it as a tool to market events and things like that, and social media. So we really caught it at the right time. And it just spread across the country. And part of the movie Osmosis Jones, Bill Murray wants to make this ultimate road trip with his brother. So it's become like a real road trip thing for people, guys, girls, people of all ages, from different parts of the country to come. If they love chicken wings, that's where they want to be, is Buffalo, where they have the best. And we invite the best restaurants from all over the country. We have over 100 different styles of wings, and let me tell you, they are good. And when people say you can't get good chicken wings outside Buffalo, no doubt we have the best, but there are some good wings outside as well if you know where to go. And we invite those folks to Buffalo. And a lot of times they have Buffalo roots, the people that started them up.
Well, and you talked about why people would need to come to Western New York. The fair is certainly a reason. I hear of a lot of people who come home, you know, for family vacations.
Yeah.
The fair is certainly centered around that. Same now with Wingfest, because you've got people coming in from all across the country, literally just to sample the wings. So the economy of the event for Western New York, and there's an event every weekend. I mean, we could fill the airwaves every week.
Yeah.
The economy must benefit tremendously from this.
No doubt, and with everything that's going on downtown on top of it, it's all going to synergize. Brian talks about synergy with Disney. It's you know, obviously Disney is in a different stratosphere, but
we can learn from
the
that.
Concepts, the synergy and the culture, you can learn from that and try to develop your own.
Yeah, and it's not made just about one thing now for Western New York. I mean, it's about a lot of things. And if you look at the summertime in Buffalo with all these festivals you mentioned, they're great festivals. Wingfest is phenomenal. The fair is great. The Corn Festival that takes place. Allentown Art Festival. I mean, we all could go on with a list of all these.
The Corn King loves to eat corn.
I love the
love
and it's so pure, and it's intense.
It's an amazing festival. It's an amazing festival.
You have to have a lot of passion and energy, and you can sense it just from you being here, just, you know, talking about what you're doing with your respective projects and Disney. Do you find, because I find sometimes it's like, sometimes you just want to run through the wall and get stuff done, and sometimes that wall stops you. Where do you find that passion on a day-to-day basis to move forward, whether it's the fair, the wings, or a Disney? I mean, where do you find that energy from?
I think it's just you got to find something you like. You know, if you like something, you're going to have passion for it, and I think that's what, if people like Drew likes what he does, and the passion that comes from that is amazing. We need more Drews in Buffalo. You know, to take that concept and to take all the risk and to go turn that around for the 13th year now coming up. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's big. It's a lot of work. People just don't realize how much.
It's year round.
Yeah.
It's not just 2 days at the ballpark. He works year round on it. And the Erie County Fair right now, there are, you know, literally hundreds of people and a full staff working every day around the clock trying to make sure this fair is the biggest and best it's ever been. So it's a lot of that, but if you don't like what you're doing, you can't have passion.
We have a picture of you guys together, Brian, from your wedding.
Oh,
I
Jesus.
pulled it off your website. You're wearing the wing hats. There you are with Kathy. And,
look at
that. You know, I don't even. Go ahead, Brian.
That was rehearsal dinner.
That was rehearsal dinner.
Yeah, that wasn't Kathy's
Kathy
gown.
wouldn't let me wear wouldn't let us wear the chicken wing hats during the wedding
I
ceremony.
tried during the ceremony.
I
but-
know.
I didn't want to feel left out. I did this when Drew was here, last fall for the Wing Fest, so I'll wear it again at the close of the show. But, gentlemen, good luck to you with continued success with what you do in Walt Disney and how you promote and brand Buffalo. And, of course, Drew, we'll see you, right around town. You're our neighbor here at WBBZ.
Yes.
Can I put the wing hat on?
Go,
Is
John. Go
this way,
for
the
it.
front way? Okay.
You're the honorary Super Bowl chicken wing king.
That's
How's
right.
That?
We can't say Super Bowl on this air.
Got
but
the
we just
rally
did.
cap on now, huh?
There we go. All right, Political Buzz, Thursday morning at 9, Sunday morning at 11 a.m. on your hometown television station. The hometown kings here of the big events. We're happy to have you here, Brian and Drew, and thanks for being good pals at WBBZ.
You can't run for office now wearing something like that. It's on the
I
button, John.
think
You're
I've
done.
Got it now.
Yeah, we're good. Just want to be on the
It's in the
crowd.
archives, John.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on your hometown television station.